gave their late President Michael Sata a befitting send-off. Several African leaders joined Zambians in saying farewell to their hero. Michael Sata died in a London hospital after serving slightly over two-thirds of his term. He was 77.
Sata's Patriotic Front Party inherited a thriving economy with billions of dollars in its coffers. But after just 3 years, the country is more than $4 billion in debt. Government says it's spent wisely. New roads are being laid, universities built, and other infrastructure upgraded. The economy has responded too, with record FDI inflows and growth in the mining, tourism, and agriculture sectors. Sata's populist policy saw governments set higher minimum wages and also stop the removal of vendors from the streets. But there have been broken promises too. A new constitution was meant to be passed within 90 days of taking office. 3 years down the line, the nation is still waiting. Just like it's still waiting for more prosperity.
There was a promise that there will be money in your pockets. People are complaining that this money is not in the people's pockets.
The shortcomings were compensated by Sata's political tolerance. Surprising for a man who earned the moniker King Cobra on account of his sharp tongue.
People who were in the MMD during the time he was in opposition, who criticized him seriously, who called him names, he embraced them and even appointed them to his government. That itself, I think, says something about his commitment to public service, his view about inclusiveness, inclusive politics, and looking at Zambia as a whole, that anyone who could contribute towards that should be given an opportunity.
Michael Sata was a man of the people, and even now, as his people accompany him to his final resting place, they are not sure what the future holds for them without their man of action.
Zambians go to the polls in 90 days, and no one is sure if the Patriotic Front can cling to power. To do so, it will need to appease millions of unemployed youths who want to see more being done so they get a share of the economic cake.
Zambia's financial market has not deepened to be able to create or empower Zambians to own the productive assets in the economy. And as such, we'll continue to look outwards.
That is to international investors, but they are likely to sit on the sidelines until there's a new government. Restive locals too will play the waiting game, hoping whoever comes next can improve their lot. CCTV, Lusaka, Zambia.
Well known as King Cobra to his admirers, Michael Sata leaves behind what some analysts describe as a mixed legacy. Michael Sata tried to be Zambia's president a record 4 times without giving up. So what lies ahead for Zambia post-Sata? CCTV's Farai Mwakutuya posed this question to Lee Habasomba, a political scientist and lecturer at the University of Lusaka.
Thank you very much, sir. I suppose to begin with, President Michael Sata was called a man of action. Do you see someone within his party who is able, or who you think will be able to fill those shoes and galvanize the party, number one, and carry the day for PF in the by-election?
Well, I don't quite frankly see anybody that fits the shoes of Michael Sata. Michael Sata was a man that could bend from the man he was to the simplest man on the street. Michael Sata was elastic. He was a guy who could rise and speak to the professor and the political elite. And therefore, I don't seem to see a person that quite fits that profile. PF is almost in a crisis at this particular moment because everybody within there thinks they can be president. But presidential job requires certain qualities. And I do think that the tragedy they face is that they did not prepare for this kind of tragic demise of the president. Although they knew that the president was unwell, I think for some reason they did not think about the future.
When this by-election comes to pass, what will be the issues on the table?
Well, I think the issues are simple. The ruling party will try and ride on the legacy of the late president. Rural road construction, electricity, and so on. But the opposition will be hitting out at the unfulfilled promises that the PF made. Particularly, they promised a constitution within 90 days. It's now 3 years, and that constitution has not come to fruition. They had promised that they would reduce fuel prices, and the fuel prices are actually going the opposite way. They have gone up. So I do think this may not necessarily be an election based on many of those things, but it's an election trying to determine what 2016 will look like. So in my take, I think that it is one where people will begin to look at who has got an agenda beyond 2016. And so you see that political parties, whether in opposition or in the ruling party, are actually creating certain kind of strategic positioning when they have been attending the funeral of the late president, the statements they have been making during this period. They do indicate that each and every one of them is trying to build statesmanship around themselves.
In your view, what should be the agenda come or beyond 2016?
Well, I think for Zambians, the agenda should be that Zambians must break from the old ways of doing things. Certainly, the constitution will be an issue that needs to be addressed. And also, I do think the generational divide will play an important role in this election.
There is, when you speak to people, or certainly during the burial and all the ceremonies that happened, a lot of people spoke about the need for Zambia to continue to observe this legacy of peace, that it has this legacy of unity. Some people might say there is a real fear that things may get out of hand. In your view, are you worried about the future of this country?
Keeping the peace and stability is dependent on the type of leadership that you have. And clearly, the Patriotic Front, which is in power at the moment, has shown signs of a party that easily wants to get at each other over small differences. So the way they manage their succession process will determine, by and large, the peacefulness of the elections to come and the stability in Zambia. So we are at a critical moment where the choice of the PF candidate will determine whether the party will remain united or it is going to split the party, therefore, or thereby spreading this effect to the general population.
Well, Zambia's succession battle has begun in earnest, and likely to be in the race for the nomination in the ruling Patriotic Front is the current Defence Minister, Edgar Lungu. He has received the endorsement of 62 members of parliament. Edgar Lungu was appointed acting president by Michael Sata while away in London, where he died while undergoing treatment. He was fired and quickly reinstated by Deputy President Guy Scott. President Sata's son, Mulenga Sata, is also likely to feature in the PF's nominations. He is the current mayor of Lusaka. Zambia's Deputy Minister for Commerce and Trade, Miles Sampa, is also understood to be seeking the Patriotic Front's ticket to run for the presidency. And in the movement for multi-party democracy, the party's President Neves Mumba has declared interest. Neves Mumba served as Vice President of Zambia between 2003 and 2004. He was also Zambia's High Commissioner to Canada from 2009 through to 2011. It is still unclear, but former President Rupia Banda may also make a comeback, according to reports. Rupiah Banda, who was Zambia's president between 2008 and 2011, is an alumni of Cambridge and Addis Ababa universities. He also previously served in various diplomatic postings for his country. Tilyenji Kaunda, the son of Zambia's founding father, Kenneth Kaunda, has also announced his intention to fight for the presidency on a UNIP ticket. Now, the race to succeed Michael Sata has begun to take shape, with the battle for nomination intensifying within the ruling Patriotic Front. The opposition movement for multi-party democracy has also joined the fray. A host of other fringe parties are also expected to throw their hats in the ring. It is the nominees of these two leading parties, however, that are likely to face off in the upcoming presidential by-election as Zambians seek to replace their fallen leader. But first, let's take a break, and when we return, our panelists will join us in discussing Zambia's transition and how it is likely to play out. Indeed, Zambia is in transition following the death of President Michael Sata. Well, joining us now to discuss Zambia after President Michael Sata, from Lusaka, Mr. Neves Mumba, the president of the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy in Johannesburg, Mr. Isaac Mfo Mogotsi, the founder and executive chairman of the Center for Economic Diplomacy in Africa. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us here on Talk Africa. Neves Mumba, I'll start off with you in Lusaka, Zambia. Now, Zambians are to go to the polls next year. They are currently in transition. They've called for a peaceful transition there in Lusaka and across the region. Are we likely to see a peaceful transition? What is it going to be like?
Well, thank you so much, Beatrice, and to all our viewers. Yes, we just lost our president, and we put him to rest on the 11th of this month. And we are now in the transition towards the by-election that is going to take place in the first part of next year. Zambia has a history of being a peaceful country over the past 50 years since we got our independence. So my expectation is that through this transition we are going to have a peaceful transition in which we are going to reorganize ourselves in preparation for the election that is coming.
All right. We've seen some jostling for position. Of course, you're with the MMD party, but we've seen particularly from the Patriotic Front, the ruling PF, we've seen some jostling there. Should there be concern at all in terms of what impact that may have on the stability of the country?
Yes, any time that you have the ruling party not being cohesive or being agreeable as to how they wish to proceed, there is an overspill to the rest of the country. So our advice to our colleagues in the ruling party is to show restraint in the manner in which they choose their candidate. Is there any reason to worry when we see the jostling for power? Firstly, it is normal that when you lose a president, everybody wants to give it a shot.
Right.
And that's what's happening in the ruling party. There was absolutely no succession program prior to the death of the president. And so this whole thing is like everybody jostling for power. Our only prayer and hope is that once again we're going to depend on Zambia's culture of ensuring that peace prevails and that we make decisions that are in the interest of the nation.
Mr. Bogotsi, you're watching this, of course, across the border in Johannesburg. Do you see this transition likely to be different? Because in 2008, Zambia went through another transition following the death of another president. Do you see any likelihood of this one being different?
I think from where we sit here in South Africa, we would broadly agree with Mr. Mumba's characterization of the situation in Zambia. I think we have an expectation that the Zambians will be able to pull together and deliver another peaceful election through a peaceful, stable, democratic process. So we don't worry much, and we do understand the jostling for power within the ruling party. We've got our own experience here in South Africa, but we also have been able to pull peaceful elections despite such a jostling for power within the ruling party.
All right. Mr. Mumba, of course, you're the president of the MMD at the moment. In terms of the front runners, though, and in terms of who the MMD is fronting, are you going to be one of the contesting candidates?
Yes. I think that our constitution is extremely clear. I am the president of the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy. And according to our constitution, yes, I remain the front runner if the election came, and it has now come. We do, of course, have certain people that would like to run, but they have to run, they have to be advised along what the Constitution stipulates. At the moment, we are looking at all the candidates that are in the different political parties, and I think we are well positioned to proceed.
You're well positioned to proceed, but the voter rejected the MMD in 2011. What are you going to be offering? What is the MMD going to be offering the electorate this time around?
We are very, very clear that arising from the last government, there are three things that we are offering the Zambian people. Firstly, we are offering Zambian people a moral leadership of integrity that can handle the issues of state with dignity and integrity and corruption-free. That is number one. Number two, the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy is offering the governance of true responsibility in terms of the rule of law to be observed in the country, which we have not had in the past 3 years. We are going to ensure that the human rights are respected within the country. We are going to ensure that the free media is perpetuated. And finally, the economy, that we operate on the free market economy that has raised the economy of this country to make it one of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world as a result of the policies of the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy. It's leadership, good governance, and also a strong economy.
Mr. Mogotsi, of course, President Sata was quite popular there in Zambia, and of course now this brings us back to his legacy or lack of it. What did you make of President Sata and his policies?
I think, generally speaking, the most important lesson that President Sata delivered was that there could be a third new party in Zambia that wins a free election other than the previous UNIP and the multi-party movement for multi-party democracy, but also part of the economic growth that Mr. Mumba has just referred to happened under his presidency. But also Mr. Sata showed wisdom in changing some of his ideas that he held before he became president. You remember some of his more unfortunate and virulent anti-Chinese sentiments. But I think upon assuming the presidency, he realized that realpolitik dictated that he adopted a different posture towards China and towards some of his international remarks. It was also unfortunate that during his presidency, his deputy president, the current acting president, directed some of the most unfortunate statements towards South Africa, accusing South Africans of being backward, and our president, President Jacob Zuma, of being arrogant. I think there were certain challenges with his presidency, but we look forward to continuing brotherly relations with Zambia.
All right. In terms of that economic stability, though, Mr. Mogotsi, we've seen Zambia's economy, remain on average 7% their economic growth, though partly as well under President Michael Sata. Did you see his policies, particularly the pro-poor policies there that he campaigned upon? Did you see that working for the Zambian people?
Our own experience here in South Africa is that policies take time to effectuate, to bring about the desired outcome, so we would not be particularly critical. I think the Patriotic Front was not long in power from 2011. It would take much longer for the benefits of forward-looking, wise economic policy to reach the poor across Zambia. But I think the fact that there was maintenance of galloping economic growth, as Mr. Mumba was saying, catapulting Zambia into among the group of 10 fastest growing economies in the world, was also a tribute to him, as it was to a large extent to the previous president, Mwanawasa. So we are very hopeful that as long as the economic ship remains on course, Zambia will be successful in the long run.
All right. Mr. Mumba, though, that whole question of economic growth, which is part of what the MMD is also putting forward. I mean, Zambia's economic growth at 7%. Zambia hugely dependent on copper, the 9th biggest copper producer there in the world and the biggest in Africa, though. How are you going to move Zambia forward, though, because, the poverty is still quite high in the country?
Yes, I think as the movement for multi-party democracy, our preoccupation was to ensure that we sustained an economic growth that was going to translate into the people at the bottom also benefiting from the economy, from the faster growth of our economy. I think that, like my colleague in South Africa has said, the platform that we set for the economy in our country is what sustained the Patriotic Front over the past 3 years. And it will take a while before it goes down. But I think that moving forward, our greatest preoccupation is to ensure that not only do we record good numbers in the GDP or good numbers in the inflation rate or good numbers in the low interest rates for the small-scale businesses, but also to make sure that the poorest of the poor are given an opportunity to participate in the wealth of our country, and in this case, copper. And so we are very, very committed to ensuring that the copper prices continue to contribute to improving the quality of life of ordinary Zambians. And I think that the economy is still robust, it's still strong. We know that in the next number of years, the damage that has been done by the Patriotic Front through the populist policies of overspending and overborrowing from international institutions is going to hit us maybe about 3 years from today. But I think that over and above that, the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy back in government is committed to stabilizing the economy once again, right, and ensuring that the international community continues to participate in our economy.
All right, Mr. Mogotsi, though, in terms of the succession debate and the issues that are dominating the Zambian life today, what do you think, though, are some of the issues that Zambians are most concerned about today, and some of the issues that will be reflected during the election period?
Well, Beatrice, I think the most important factor to recognize is that Zambia is a very strategic country within our region, SADC. It's really the heart at the very center, bordering about 8 countries. So our interest in Zambia is ongoing, it's relentless. I think the issues that would interest Zambians from my point of view would be that the transition is, as you indicated at the outset of the program in your introductory remarks, that it's peaceful and that there is adherence to constitutionalism, that people respect the Zambian constitution, and that we avoid a situation where decisions by the leadership, the executive, are taken and only to be reversed under pressure. I think there has to be an understanding that Zambia is going through a difficult period. We are mourning the passing of President Michael Sata, and that wisdom, sober decision-making, and an assurance that the hard-fought-for, hard-won stability in Zambia will continue to inspire us all in South Africa, because Zambia is a very friendly, fraternal country to South Africans. Many of us were exiled in Zambia when we fought against apartheid, and this brotherly relation should continue. No situation of civil strife or instability will serve Zambians, nor will it serve people of SADC in general.
Mr. Mogotsi, of course, the Patriotic Front has been in power now for just over 2 years. What do you make of the strength of the Patriotic Front going into the election, and who do you see as the front runners, though, for the Patriotic Front?
I think from where I sit, and speaking frankly, I would say the election is for the Patriotic Front to lose. Unfortunately, some of the media reports that we are receiving about the infighting do not augur well for a very successful campaign on the part of the Patriotic Front. I think they need to sort this matter of succession within the party speedily, publicly, and in a transparent manner. I think if they could do that, they are likely to benefit from a sympathy vote in the wake of the passing on of President Michael Sata. But I do concede also, as Mr. Mumba was saying, that the movement for multi-party democracy is a much older movement. It has been in operation since 1991, so it is well established. It's spread across Zambia. So they also have a fire in the belly. They desire to go back into power. So I think let the best party or the better party win.
From where you're sitting, though, who do you see as the front runners for the Patriotic Front at this point?
It's 50-50 if you just take the Patriotic Front and the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy, but you've just indicated that the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy may not be inclined to enter into coalition with other parties that may work against them. I mean, the more you have parties around you, the stronger you naturally are in an election like this. So we'll see. If that is taken into account, I would give a slight edge to the Patriotic Front on account of a sympathy vote, really.
All right, we'll leave it there for the moment, gentlemen, but I do thank you for being on Talk Africa today. Mr. Nevis Mumba, the president of the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy. In Johannesburg is Mr. Isaac Mfomogotsi, the founder of and executive chairman of the Center for Economic Democracy in Africa, joining us there from Johannesburg. Gentlemen, thank you very much. I'm Beatrice Marshall in Nairobi. Goodbye.
We're not going to have exactly Mr. Sata coming back.
We pray that the next leader go about the so-called continuity.
Someone who's got a passion for the country, who wants a better Zambia. Yes, everyone can make promises, they can tell us economic policies and everything, but I want to feel it. It's better to have a dad who's at home than a rich dad who just talks and everything.
I pray for the PF government to get organized.
I think I want someone who has a vision like Sata, someone who is a loving person, someone who will deliver, not just on paper.
For me, as an individual, I want someone who has worked very closely with the late president so that that person can continue from where he has left.
So we are looking for that person who's going to carry on.